Okay, thank you. Welcome, everybody. So today we have a very exciting episode. I haven't done this one yet in the last couple years. And as you know, for new people on, we have been doing a different topic on how the body heals itself for over 100 episodes now. And the main part of that is using something called redox signaling molecules, as you just heard. And so it's really awesome that I get to teach on structure function in the body and how amazing our bodies are and how quickly they can respond if given the right therapies, the right nutrients, the right technologies. You know, your body wants nothing more than to make you whole and keep you happy and balanced. And it uses this stuff called redox signaling molecules made in every cell of your body to accomplish that. Now, as Sherry said, well, she might or may not have said, but I'm a chiropractor for the last 30 years, and I've devoted my life to finding ways to get people better faster and keep them well. So yes, that gives me an open mind to always be looking at things. I try a lot of things that don't work, but you won't know until you try. And it's very rare that you're going to find something like what you're going to see today. And it's not just for a condition or this part of the body that we're talking about today, it's for every cell in the body. So I can't really say that about any other product that I have, that every single person will benefit from taking it, because we're all so different in so many ways and have different sensitivities to things and heal at different rates and have different potential in ourselves. And so everybody is unique, but we do have all the same types of tissues, and we have the same exact process that's happening in order to replace our cells and hopefully make the next version a little bit better than this one, because we know how to better take care of ourselves. Now, it's hard to think of a cellular level. Think of your children. How much do you give to your children to make sure that they're taken care of before yourself? Okay, well, you have 100 trillion children. So you have a lot of children to take care of, but people don't think of their cells as important, because I can abuse or damage my cell and not really notice the effect, or my body tends to just get over it and heal. And so you take a lot for granted when it comes to our health. Well, being a brain and spinal trauma specialist, I've certainly seen some amazing cases of recovery, including my own. I was in a head-on collision and had to become my own best patient. My wife and I were in the car together, and I was permanently disabled for a lot of years. In fact, the year I finally broke free of my pain and all my disabilities after 17 years of fighting for it was 10 years ago, the same year that I found ASEA. And so it's been so remarkable to keep me out of my chair, to keep me healthy, to keep me at what we call optimal potential, the best of my ability at my age right now. And, I wouldn't give it up for anything. I have seen so many miraculous healings take place and so many hundreds of patients that we used to have to take so much more time. Healing takes time, especially when talking about nerves or brain cells. They're the most complicated ones in our body. And so we would treat and then we would wait, wait for the body to catch up. And so now it's just amazing because of this knowledge and redox chemistry. I understand why we can get results 4 or 5 times faster than what we usually do. It all boils back to the cell's ability to hold a charge, because we're bioelectrical beings, and its ability to communicate. And in doing that, it knows how to help defend itself and also protect all the neighboring cells, like a cascading effect throughout the body. So today's talk is going to be on ADHD and redox chemistry. And so the title of it is Tiny Messengers with a Big Impact. Okay, and so let me go ahead and start and sharing that. Now, I will say that even before we begin, that ASEA and Renew 28 are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease in the body. We've mentioned that It's not to take the place of medications. Your body has to heal itself from within. And when it does that, the doctor that has you on whatever protocols can titrate or alter those protocols for you based on how your body's actually functioning. So, usually we don't mention disease names or condition names, but in order to understand how the brain works and how it can regulate in different ways. We're going to talk about ADHD today, okay? And so, but in no relation am I wanting you to diagnose yourself or your family members and certainly stop any protocols that you're on without first discussing it with your physician. So, what is ADD? Common symptoms and challenges that we face, and how it affects our daily life. So, for any of you that have had children with ADHD or tried to babysit grandkids with ADHD or even your friends' kids, this is kind of what you expect. It's like, okay, it's time to wind down and let's get ready for dinner and or bedtime. And they're gonna keep running around and have all sorts of just amazing energy. So it can be very, very frustrating when you're trying to get them to behave and listen to your orders, but it's all being overridden and they just have so much energy to give off that you just let them run it out until they fatigue, then they'll finally crash and sleep very well. So I want to talk about the difference between ADD and ADHD between children and adults. So for symptoms, often with children, it's very obvious hyperactivity, okay? Constantly fidgeting and moving and running around and climbing on things that they shouldn't. Where adults, it's very much less likely of the hyperactivity. Instead, they're just feeling stressed out inside, like just racing thoughts and just ants in their pants and just not efficient and being distracted easily and doing all sorts of things. And we're going to talk more about that in just a minute. But the impact it has on their daily life, well, often with children, it's going to affect their school performance, which means their grades and their ability to pay attention to the teacher and not be distracted by every little thing happening in the room. Typically, a child with ADHD is thinking about 20 things at the same time versus your average person about 7. So even though they're listening to the teacher, all of a sudden somebody comes in that back door and it opens and closes. Now they know it's just probably somebody came in or went out, but they have to look and then they have to come back. So it's really hard to be able to maintain that focus. Even if a pencil from the neighboring desk falls off and starts rolling towards them, they know what it is in their mind, and yet they still can't stay the focus. I got to look at it. Oh, there it is. And so it's the ability to not let one of those 20 things all have the same importance as the one that you're focusing on and turning it off. Now, it's great to be hyper vigilant and be able to see all sides, but also to turn it off so it doesn't stress you out at times. Where as an adult, it's more of an impact on your job performance. Again, it's all about efficiency, right? Oops, went the wrong way. It's all about efficiency and actually getting results at work, okay? But it's more than that. It's your relationships. It's your family relationships. It's managing all of your daily responsibilities and staying on top of things like paying your bills and keeping appointments that you're making and not feeling like you just keep putting too much on your plate that you know you're never going to actually get done. So coping mechanisms, well, in children, they usually need more external help. Usually a lot of support from family members, from teachers is super important to have teachers that, have patience and that are caring and that really want to connect with your child and not just be agitated and irritated and always trying to put them in their right place, okay? Because we're all humans and we just want to be talked right, but it's important that you understand they're not receiving the information like you receive information. So it's not simple for them to obey or to respond in the way that you wish that they would respond. I mean, you understand how their brain's wired, which we'll go through in a minute. You'll much more appreciate what the families and the teachers really have to endure to make that connection, because everybody communicates, but very few people connect. And the sooner you can connect, then the harder they'll try to please you, right? And to do those things. But as adults, it's usually, oh, I'm sorry, coping strategies for adults. is usually going to still benefit from support. But they tend to say, oh, that's just me. And I've always been this way. And this is, how I am and how I behave. So either they accept it or they want to figure out ways to have more balance. And your past doesn't have to equal the future. And if you want to learn something, learn it. If you want to, develop a skill, work on it. It's like if you want to correct how your brain's default into thinking and programming, we have to work on these things. And so, to be diagnosed with ADHD, there's what we call subjective and objective. But with children, usually it's in early childhood because when they're starting in school, they're having a hard time fitting in without being disruptive. And so they have subjective tests where the teacher is filling out all these answers based on how that child acts and performs in class. They have other tests that the parents are filling out on how their child behaves at home and all of that. And in most cases, that's all they're doing. And they're coming to a conclusion whether they have anxiety or depression or ADD, ADHD, based on subjective input. And unfortunately, it's been my experience that a lot of times it's not been accurate. And so objective is when we would do a QEEG brain map. And then that could tell us exactly the neurological output and the potential that their brain cells are holding and what it's exactly doing neurologically. Okay. And so a lot of times, especially a smaller child, they don't really know how to communicate how they're feeling inside. It's never really been explained to them why and how they're feeling what they're feeling. But when we think about adults, we just have to kind of paint the picture. Like these are very common things that adults feel when they have ADHD. And so as you're looking through this list, yes, you can have lack of focus without ADHD. And so, yes, you can have a lot of these things, but if you find you're starting to experience several, it would be worth getting a brain map and determining where am I at really with that. A lot of people think that they have ADHD and I map them and they don't. They just have what's called inattention, which means if it's not important to them, they don't want to pay attention to it. That's a simple fact. And that has nothing to do with ADD. It's just I only have so much room on the shelves up here in my brain to store information. And what you're saying isn't important enough for me to replace it with something I already have up there, right? And so it does help when you can identify exactly where you're at. And then we know all sorts of resources and ways to truly help your body finally overcome and heal that. So let's talk about the actual brain and ADHD. We're going to do a brief overview of the function of the brain and then how ADD changes that brain activity, and then the role of neurotransmitters in our brain. Okay, and so let's go into the actual technology nowadays has gotten so advanced, it's so exciting because this has been my passion for like 3 decades studying brain function. And to see technology emerge that literally helps us build 3D images of the brain and talk about its potential and what it's exactly doing. And it just gives us so much more information, not to not have this one part of their healthcare be a big black hole that everything gets sucked into it. We don't really know what's going on. And it should have been responding to this medication that it was, and then it just stopped working, or whatever the scenario is. When we have more information neurologically on what you actually are doing, then it's really easy to help you find your way out of the chaos in your life and find that peace again. And so when we think of our brain, we have to think of arousal states. Now we have a built-in mechanism. When something is stressful, we release hormones and neurotransmitters, like things like cortisol or adrenaline. Okay, adrenaline is going to wake you up real fast and let you run for your life and fight and flight. Okay, and it lasts about 3.5 minutes. So if you imagine you're in a stick shift car, a manual drive car, and if the vehicle itself is going about 50 miles an hour, you should probably be in around fifth gear. Now, if you drop it into second gear at 50 miles an hour, your RPMs, the engine's going to race. That calls the engine to have anxiety, is what that would be doing. Now, at the same token, if you're only going 10 miles an hour and you put it up into fifth gear, you're going to stall the engine. That's depression. And so our body has hormones and neurotransmitters to guide and direct that path to only go there when it's appropriate, when the vehicle's going that speed. So if I'm home and all of a sudden the house is on fire, adrenaline's going to start pumping and I'm going to run as fast as I can and get out of the house or protect anybody in the house, grab them and get them out of the house. Okay, this is an adrenaline rush. Now it lasts about 3 minutes. We're out, we're safe. Okay, everybody can calm down and we go back to idle processing. And then all of a sudden, my neighbor tells me that their pet was just run over by a car and she's over there crying her eyes out. Well, I'm going to produce other hormones that allow me to be more compassionate and go put my arm around her and love on her and feel her sorrow and then help her remember all the good memories she had and whatever the situation was and bring them back up out of that slower brain because it was appropriate to go there. That's a normal response when these things happen in our life. But then it does wear off and nothing I can do about it now, so I might as well not stay here. And you idle right back up into your idle. Yes, you're still sad, but your brain's at idle speed. It can be adaptive. It can go in either direction, faster or slower on a whim. If you're already slow and you get stuck down there, that's depression. And guess what? That's also ADHD. And so they're acting out and becoming hyperactive because they're trying to wake up the engine. They're trying to push the car and jumpstart it. And they have all this energy to try to feel more, but they're just not feeling it. So it's creating all this energy to try to get them to go this way. So they'll do medications. I'm not going to name any medications, but they're basically like a form of things to speed up the brain, a chemical to help speed up the brain so that they're not stuck down there. So there's a time and a place for that. It can be very effective. But if you're taking something to speed up the brain and you were misdiagnosis and your brain's actually stuck too fast, now you're not helping it. In fact, you're making it worse. You know, they have medications for a brain that's stuck too fast that slow it down and drive it. And the goal is to try to get you into that sweet spot in the middle to where you can actually feel normal and relaxed and at peace and feel like you have a little bit of flexibility. The problem is with the medication, it kind of numbs you there so that you don't have the ability to get excited or go the other way at all while you're on it. And so you're not as adaptable and flexible, but hey, you're not being disruptive and you can, tend to stay focused on things and get things done. So there's always benefits to that. But it's all about this arousal state. And we want to have it to be able to be adaptive, which means go in whatever direction I need it to go in when I need it to go there. So when we think about what are redox signaling molecules and what's their role in our cellular health, and then how are they affecting the brain function? Well, think of it as the potential that lights up the cell. It gives it energy and it starts sending energy and chemicals to communicate. We've always called it innate intelligence, being a chiropractor. But the mechanism of action is you have a thought and you want to do something. So that signal starts somewhere in your brain. It's sent somewhere else to create action, and then you go physically do it. And so if this potential gets weak and slows down, and it's like a battery that was fully charged down to its last bar, your body's going to start conserving that energy greatly and only giving it to vital areas to where it needs to be utilized. And so think of these as tiny molecules that can easily absorb into any cell in the body. You're talking hydrogen, oxygen, these are the periodic table, one electron, hydrogen. And so it doesn't need a door. It doesn't need a window. It doesn't need even a gatekeeper to pull it into the cell. It can just go right into the cell and start turning on and turning off switches. Switches meaning DNA markers and how we express our DNA. There's only 4 genes that are fixed in your body, and all the rest can be adapted based on your environment and what you're doing and thinking. And so it's all redox chemistry that plays the role in all of that. So what's the role with ADD and redox then? That's the big question and why we're here tonight. And so again, redox molecules are tiny messengers in the body. And in people with ADHD, these messengers are not working as well as they should. And so this affects how the brain cells talk to each other, which is super important if we're going to be talking about focus or attention. We need them to all jump on board. For example, these molecules might control how much of a certain chemical or neurotransmitter that your brain is releasing. We need to release these to feel good, to calm down, to have memories, all of these things. But if the redox molecules aren't doing their job right, well, it's going to lead to too much or too little of these neurotransmitters or these brain chemicals, which is going to make your ADHD symptoms far worse. So when we think about the potential benefits from balancing our redox, well, if the redox signals are working well, it's going to help with things like better focus, better concentration. It's going to improve your memory. It's going to help you have more stable moods, and much higher energy levels, just consistent throughout the day. Not these, little episodes during the day where you're having to, burn off all that energy. So think of it like tuning up your car. If everything is balanced and working right, the engine, or in this case, your brain, is going to run much smoother. So there's so much research on redox chemistry and ADHD. So this isn't something new. We're still always doing more, of course. But the scientists are still learning about this connection. And so here's some of the studies that are out there. There's people that have studied ADHD and how people with ADHD have more oxidative stress in their bodies than people that don't. And that oxidative stress is what is tearing down and making the cells not communicate well. Okay, it's like biting into an apple and it all starts to turn brown once oxygen can get in there, where before the cover of the apple, the peel, is protecting the inside. Okay, once it's exposed, it's oxidized. So your brain produces 2.5 million times more oxidation than any other cell in your body. It's like the exhaust out of an engine, okay? And you have 2.5 million engines in every cell of your brain versus a few hundred in the rest of the cells of your body. They also have studies that show how improving that redox balance is going to protect your brain cells and actually help them work better. Now, by working better, meaning that during the day they're wide open and they're just sending information as fast as they can until they just run out of a battery. And once the charge is gone, the brain cell is just going to sit there and look pretty, not going to be able to actually do anything until you sleep and it gets recharged again. Now, an interesting fact that you may or may not know is when your brain cells function well, right towards the end of the day before you go into sleep, they start taking out the garbage. Okay, you don't have lymph vessels in your brain. So when it takes out the garbage, your brain cells shrink and then it pushes all the debris outside the wall of the brain cell. And then you turn up your cerebral spinal fluid and you flush out 60% more spinal fluid during those hours of deep and REM sleep to basically clean up all the debris around your brain cells and get them out. Things like amyloid plaque, things like heavy metals and stuff that your cell says, I don't want any of this. And it's trying to spit it out, but it needs to shrink so the spinal fluid can flush it all. Otherwise, they're all tight together and you end up getting all this plaque buildup in your brain. And this is the onset of neurological cognitive decline. You can call it a bunch of different conditions, but that's what it boils down to. Now, other treatments can affect redox signaling molecules, and there's been lots of studies that show when you're improving redox molecules, you're going to improve the outcome of ADHD. And so there's a lot of new research always going on. I urge you to look up some of the research on ASEA's science, and that's going to be aseascience.com or redoxscience.com are two great resources to really see a lot and learn a lot about more of the things that we're talking about. Now, I will say that lifestyle plays a super important role. Um, Obviously, we know garbage in, garbage out. If we eat well, we're going to produce a lot of antioxidants and we produce a lot more redox. It's important to eat things that are real and not ultra processed food. All of those usually cost us more redox than we're making from it. eating, things that grew from the ground or a tree or ran on the ground. Those things usually are going to be really good to help you produce higher levels of redox chemistry for yourself. Of course, exercise and physical activity, especially with children, they're growing so fast. They have so much energy. They make a lot of redox. But, again, lifestyles, if they're not exercising and eating right, it doesn't matter what age you are, you're going to be deficient because your body needs this. It's the number one need that drives the function of literally every cell in your body. And the exercise part, even for you adults that don't get out and do enough, even walking around the block before dinner, it's like you're going to release endorphins. These are wonderful neurotransmitters for your brain to help you feel happy and loved and balanced. And if you're not getting endorphins out, it's like living indoors and never seeing the sun. It's like it's really hard to be at your potential if you're not being exposed to all of that. And then, of course, stress management techniques, especially with children, they're experiencing stress. And if you're not really connecting with your child, and asking the right questions and getting them to think about what stress means and what you do when you feel that. Do you cope and run and hide and don't talk, or do you express your feelings? And can we do that in a way that we know we're listening to each other? I mean, there's all sorts of different ways. My parents always taught me that never let anybody get your goat. And I used to laugh, like, I have no idea what you mean, Dad. I don't have a goat. What are you talking about? He's like, well, when you hear news that stresses you out immediately and it makes you feel defensive inside and you want to argue or you want to just get really upset, hold back for a moment and tell yourself that, you know what? I probably don't have all the facts yet. And it's probably best I don't let myself feel any kind of way until I hear the other side of the story or get more facts on this topic. And in just doing so, you're stopping the release of all these stress hormones that take hours to process and get out of your body. And you're not letting yourself get hijacked into going into this fight and flight response, which is going to zap up all the redox reserve or chemistry that you currently have to be doing all the things in the body. Immediately, priorities change. I'm not healing my arm. I don't care about that foot anymore. I'm not going to worry about whatever muscles because I got to get this brain right because it just got zapped from all of its power, right? And so it's super important to learn how to manage stress. And it's all about communication always. Whatever I'm stressed about, somebody can talk me through it and make me realize that there was other viewpoints that I wasn't even considering. And knowing that, oh, I'm not so stressed about this. My wife and I have a funny little thing where we say, you know what, I never did mind the little things, no matter how big it seems. We call it a little thing, and then it doesn't give it the power to stress us out as much, right? Because we always want to conserve our resources of the potential of ourselves. So, what type of potential treatments and therapies are there out there? Well, traditionally, they like to use medication to help with this because it can be pretty quick acting and then it can last for a certain amount of time, exact amount of time for that matter. But it's always going to drive in one direction, like we spoke. So there is a time and a place for that. Ideally, not for life, for a season, while we're trying to heal and we're doing all the things we can to heal. You never stop the treatments that you're on or the doses that you're on without talking to your doctor that put you on it, period. I would recommend that if you're going to try things like these new therapies like redox signaling molecules that you can now drink and get the potential that you had when you were little, or have somebody that's little that's potential's been knocked out, get it restored. Um, but what you're going to want to pay attention to is what are the side effects if I take too much of that medication? Because most likely you only know what happens when you forgot to take it or forgot to give it to your child. You know what they spin into. And so, but you don't give them twice as much because that would cause other problems. Well, you need to know what those problems are so that as they're healing, those things start to happen. Now you need to communicate that with the physician so that they understand how to titrate properly. But we've been doing this for decades and we can get you off medications most of the time for this type of condition um, if you work really hard at it, and so it just takes it takes some focus and your body just has to heal. And remember, as you're taking the new supplements like a redox molecule, you might be wanting to take it for one condition or one symptom that you're having, but your neurologist got a completely different bucket list of what's most important in keeping you alive and thriving. And so it might take a while for some people to get to whatever it is, the reason you think you're taking this. But so many other things will be corrected along the way. It's impossible for this not to work because every cell in your body makes it and it wishes it could make more. Because as we age, we're losing it. And so it's important to think of a holistic approach. And what I mean by that is natural. What can I do that's natural, that's native to my body, that, lifestyle things that I can do just to give my body the best potential to heal this situation. And when you go the medication route, it can help take the symptoms away quickly, which is great because it's very annoying to have all these symptoms, but it's also blocking the neural pathway artificially that you're not developed right, or it's been damaged and you can't communicate through that bridge correctly. And so the medication blocks that. It's not allowing your body to heal it. And so you'll be dependent on that. And that's fine for a while. But once your body can reroute and get them around that area, then things will start coming back again. And so it's exciting to see therapies like neurofeedback where we can target areas of the brain and really start to grow tissue and basically build new bridges in the areas that lost the ability to signal through. So instead of going from here to here, this message goes all the way around the brain to finally get to there. And so for almost 9 years now, we've had patients using these molecules with brain training, and it was an absolute game changer. We went from 30 minutes twice a week to 4 hours a day, every day. Reduces oxidative stress in the brain so fast that it doesn't allow them to even have the inflammation ever kick in. And so they're recovered and they can keep going and going and going. Anybody else would be overtraining, they'd be having a headache for the whole month. And so it's amazing. And that's where my head's been focused. Now, 2 years ago, sold my practice, and retired from chiropractic, and have taken this time to do deep dives into research every day. And every week we're putting on these new episodes based on, requests that we're getting back from all of you. I love, having a request that makes it more fun to go dive into that thinking, well, what am I going to do today? So how do we take action? Well, the simplest step is to do the things that are supporting brain health. You need to have fats. A lot of people say, oh, fat's so bad for you, it's going to make you fat. Fat will not make you fat, okay? Your brain is made of fat. Your nerves are made of fat. And it's important that you don't cut that out of your diet, okay? That's super important. Of course, vegetables, fruits, lean meats, all of these things are also equally important. Your brain and every cell in your body needs proteins, vitamins, and minerals to function and be healthy. So when do we speak to a professional? Well, when you feel your life's just not manageable and it's doesn't feel like it's changing or getting better. It's always great to seek somebody that specializes in understanding the condition that you're worried about, because you're going to get so much more insight and knowledge on what other people are doing, what you can expect, what you cannot expect, and making sure that you're doing all the right things. Okay. And so when we have blood work, that tells us a lot too, as we get older, especially. But then supplementing, this is the first step. It's the easiest step to do because it's something that is very attainable. So introducing the world's very first and only redox supplement. So this has never been accomplished before because every cell in your body makes these four molecules from just breaking down food and energy, making energy. These come out of the other end, and your body uses these as some of the letters that make up the language of how your cells actually communicate. So the ones that you make are gone as fast as you make them, and you're just making them as much as you need, as much as you can make for what your need is right now. Now, we can have lifestyle things that I said that just zap it all out of you, but now we have a source to replenish this. And these molecules are all stable in this bottle for up to 2 years, which again is a miracle in itself. It's like saying that I took a spark from a fire, put it in a mason jar, and said, I'm going to go start fires with this for the next 2 years. It's like, it doesn't work that way, you know, but they did crack the code. They got 7 patents on it and over 1,000 trade secrets on how they've created these amazing molecules. They were offered generational wealth to just give it up and let it be shelved. And they helped so many people in a very short period of time when they first found what they invented, that there was no way they could take it away from their family members because it saved their life literally. And you're going to see so many testimonies and stories of people with that exact same prognosis. You know, they weren't given much hope to live, and here they are years later. So increasing your redox chemistry literally increases the power and the potential of every cell in your body. So that's why I said it doesn't matter what condition. It's not about tonight's topic. It's about, if I want my body to start healing, this is the farthest thing upstream that I can go to get it into that place that it has the ability to communicate what's wrong, what it needs, how it's going to fix it, turning on and off genes, releasing hormones, neurotransmitters, making sure they're received in the receptors by keeping all of that clean. They play such a dynamic role in all cell communication. So improving your body's ability to maintain homeostasis, the more you can be within your vital signs with no stress on those vitals, all the rest of your energy goes to healing things, old things even from childhood that you've been dealing with your entire life. Doesn't have to be the rest of your life. You have the ability to make new cells better than the ones you have right now, closer to the ones when you were young, just by consistently taking this product. It's about the right dose for your age, and it's also about consistency. It's not a once and I have it for today that I don't have the potential tomorrow. It's not fully charging all the cells of your body in one serving. Okay, it takes months to be able to rise the tide of how much potential I have in my cells and how long can I maintain that. And it would take months after you stopped taking this to lose it all. So it's not just lost in a day either. But the more you learn about it, the more you really pay attention and connect with people that know a lot about this, you're going to be so amazed. It's the first thing I think of when I wake up, and it's one of the last things I'm thinking of when I go to bed, because it is that important just to keep me happy, healthy, and out of my wheelchair and not experiencing discomfort most of the time, I'll say. It takes a lot of work to keep me whole. But that's redox signaling molecules, and they will absolutely enhance your life. So if we deal with the potential first, your body's going to neutralize all that inflammation, all that oxidation, and it's going to maintain a healthier charge all day long and be able to actually communicate and allow the signals to spread through your entire cellular network. This is an amazing product, and I'm sure you're going to feel so too. If you haven't tried it yet, I urge you, get back to the person that brought you here and get started today. You have nothing to lose by trying it. I will say that in the beginning, if you're only on it for 1 week, only about 10% of the people are going to have any kind of breakthrough. If you do it for 30 days, about 50% of the people have found a breakthrough, like, wow, this really is working. I can see what it's doing. But at 90 days, 90% of the people have had a breakthrough. So don't just try it for a week. Do it for 90 days. You still get a 90% money back guarantee at 90 days if you don't really feel that it made a difference. Now, I just did my own study where I had close to 60 people come in that have never tried this supplement before. And they were given a brain map, a full QEEG brain map. And then they took 8 ounces of this a day for 90 days. And then I did a post map on them. And it was amazing. I mean, we're talking no other therapies, no other new supplements. They couldn't start any new programs. They had to just do everything that they've already done for that time. So I could really isolate, is this really what changed it? And I was super surprised at how much that changed. So there's other episodes we've done in the past that go through and sharing all of that with you, and you're welcome to see that in the library. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Sherry. Thank you guys so much for coming today, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.